"You can send me back," the mail-order bride asked. The cowboy answered, "My son already chose you." Elena had never traveled so far from home. The train ride from the bustling city had been long and tiring, and now, as she stepped onto the wooden platform of the small Texas town, a wave of nervousness swept over her. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty streets, and the sound of horses and carts filled the air. Everything looked so different from the busy city streets she knew, with their carriages, shops, and crowds of people rushing about. Here, the open land seemed endless, dotted with small wooden buildings and wide plains stretching far beyond the horizon. She clutched her small trunk tightly, her fingers brushing against the worn leather handles, feeling the weight of both her belongings and her uncertain future. Elena had agreed to this journey after weeks of correspondence. Letters from a young man named Jake had promised kindness, warmth, and a family who would welcome her. She had never met him or his father, Tom Harris, in person, but the letters carried a sense of honesty that she had trusted. Still, as she looked around at the quiet town and the rugged people bustling about, doubt crept into her mind. She wondered if she had made the right decision. Was she brave enough for this life? Could she survive so far from the comforts of home? The train whistle blew once more, and Elena took a deep breath, forcing herself to step forward. A tall man with sun-weathered skin and a broad-brimmed hat approached, leading a horse. His presence was calm but commanding, and she immediately realized this must be Tom Harris, the man she was meant to meet. Behind him, a young man of about 18 stood quietly, observing her with curiosity and a hint of shyness. Elena's heart skipped a beat as their eyes met. Tom tipped his hat politely. "You must be Elena," he said, his voice warm but firm. "We've been waiting for you." Elena managed a small smile, unsure what to say. "Yes, I'm Elena. Thank you for meeting me." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the nervousness she tried to hide. Tom gave her a reassuring nod. "It's a long journey, but you're here now. Let's get your things and take you to the ranch." As Elena followed them down the dusty road, she couldn't help but notice the stark difference between the city she had left behind and this new place. The buildings were simple, made of wood and stone, with smoke curling lazily from chimneys. Children ran barefoot in the streets, laughing and playing despite the heat. The air smelled of hay, dust, and animals, a mix she had never experienced before. Every sound and sight made her heart race, part excitement, part fear. When they arrived at the Harris Ranch, Elena's breath caught. The house was modest, made of weathered wood with a wide porch and a few outbuildings nearby. Beyond the house stretched vast fields and pastures dotted with grazing cattle and horses. She could see the mountains in the distance, their peaks soft and purple in the fading light. It was beautiful in a raw, untamed way, but Elena felt a pang of doubt. Could she truly belong here? Could she manage the hard work that life on a ranch demanded? Tom noticed her hesitation. "It's all right to be nervous," he said kindly. "I know this is different from what you're used to, but you'll learn. We'll help you." Elena looked at him, grateful for his words, but still unsure. I don't want to be a burden," she admitted quietly. "If I'm not what you expected, you can send me back." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. She hated the thought of being unwanted, of failing before she had even begun. Tom looked at her steadily, his eyes filled with understanding. "Elena, that's not going to happen. You need to know something. Jake has already chosen you. He believes in you. We're a family here, and families stick together." The words surprised Elena. She had assumed that everything depended on her proving herself to Tom or Jake, but the fact that Jake had already made a choice for her made her heart warm slightly. Still, she was hesitant to believe it. How could someone care for her without having met her in person? How could she trust that this was real and not just the polite words of strangers? As the evening settled in, Elena was shown to a small room in the house. The room was simple but clean, with a wooden bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the fields. She unpacked her belongings slowly, placing each item carefully. As if by arranging them neatly, she could bring a sense of order to the whirlwind of emotions inside her. She thought about her journey, about the letters she had exchanged with Jake, and about the life that now awaited her. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and Elena felt a small spark of hope amidst her nervousness. The next morning brought new challenges. Elena awoke to the sound of roosters crowing and the distant lowing of cattle. She stepped outside onto the porch, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. The land stretched endlessly before her, and she felt both tiny and overwhelmed. Tom and Jake greeted her with smiles, ready to start the day. "First things first," Tom said, handing her a basket. "We need to feed the animals and check the fences." Alina swallowed her nerves and nodded. She followed them to the barn, where the smell of hay and animals filled the air. She had never been so close to livestock before, and for a moment she froze, unsure how to proceed. But Jake gently guided her, showing her how to pour feed into the troughs and check the water buckets. His patience and encouragement helped her calm her racing heart. As the day went on, Alina began to understand the rhythm of life on the ranch. It was hard work with long hours in the sun, but there was a sense of purpose and satisfaction she had never known. She helped mend fences, gather eggs from the chickens, and even learned to ride a horse, though not without a few wobbly moments that left her heart pounding. Through it all, Jake stayed by her side, offering guidance and occasional teasing, which made her laugh despite the soreness in her muscles. By evening, Alina was exhausted but proud. She sat on the porch, watching the sun set behind the mountains, and felt a sense of accomplishment. She realized that, despite her fears, she had taken the first steps toward becoming part of this new life. Tom brought out a simple supper, and the three of them ate together, sharing stories and laughter. For the first time, Alina felt a small but growing connection to this family she had only just met. Yet, doubts still lingered in the corners of her mind. She worried about the long-term challenges. Could she truly fit into this life? Would she ever feel at home here? And what if Jake's choice was only made out of duty, not real affection? These thoughts made her uneasy, but she tried not to let them show. She knew that tomorrow would bring more lessons, more work, and more opportunities to prove herself, not just to the family, but to herself as well. That night, as she lay in bed, Alina thought about her journey and the letters she had exchanged. She remembered Jake's words, his descriptions of the ranch, his hopes for a future together. She realized that trust was the first step, and she had to give both him and herself a chance. Slowly, sleep claimed her, and for the first time in days, she dreamed not of fear, but of possibility. A life filled with challenges, yes, but also with hope, love, and belonging. The next morning would bring new tests, new connections, and new moments that would shape the beginning of her life on the ranch. But for now, Alina felt a quiet determination growing inside her. She was far from home, far from everything familiar, but she was ready to begin this journey, step by step, with courage, patience, and an open heart. Alina woke up to the soft sounds of the ranch in the morning. The wind moved gently across the fields, and somewhere in the distance, a cow lowed. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. She took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill her lungs, and for a moment the memories of the city seemed far away. Life here was different, simple, hard, but alive in a way that she could feel deep in her bones. After a quick breakfast with Tom and Jake, Alina prepared for the day ahead. Today, she would learn more about the work of the ranch. Tom had said that understanding the animals, caring for the land, and helping with daily chores was the first step to becoming part of the family. It was hard work, yes, but Alina felt a strange sense of excitement. For the first time in her life, she felt that her efforts mattered, not for school grades, not for applause, but simply for the survival and happiness of a family. Jake approached her with a small grin. "Ready for today's lesson?" he asked. He carried a rope in one hand and a saddle in the other. Alina nodded, trying to hide the nervous flutter in her stomach. She had never been on a horse before, and she worried about looking clumsy, but Jake's smile made her feel more at ease. "Don't worry," he said. "Everyone falls the first few times. The important thing is to try again." Together, they led a sturdy brown horse out of the stable. Alina ran her hands over its mane, feeling the warmth of its coat and the steady beat of its heart. Jake showed her how to put on the saddle, tighten the straps, and hold the reins correctly. She listened carefully, trying to remember every instruction. When it was finally time to mount the horse, her heart pounded. With Jake's patient guidance, she swung her leg over and settled into the saddle. The horse shifted beneath her, and for a moment she felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. "Easy now," Jake said softly. "Take it slow. You'll get used to it." Alina took a deep breath and nudged the horse gently. It walked forward, unsteady at first, but soon she found a rhythm. The wind brushed against her face, and she felt a strange sense of freedom. Jake walked beside her, encouraging her and sometimes laughing at her mistakes in a kind way. By the time the sun was high in the sky, Alina was riding more confidently. The experience left her exhausted, but also proud of herself. She realized that learning something new could be difficult, but it could also bring joy and a sense of accomplishment. After the ride, Alina helped Jake and Tom with feeding the cattle. She had learned to carry buckets of water, fill troughs, and make sure each animal had enough to eat. It was tiring work, and the sun beat down on her back, but she felt satisfaction in knowing that her efforts kept the animals healthy and happy. Tom watched her quietly, nodding approvingly when she did something correctly. Alina noticed the pride in his eyes, and it gave her courage to keep trying, even when tasks seemed hard. In the afternoon, Alina helped gather eggs from the chickens. She had never done this before, and at first, she was nervous about holding the fragile eggs without breaking them. But Jake showed her how to pick them up gently, how to place them carefully in the basket, and how to count them to make sure none were missing. As she worked, she began to feel more comfortable in her surroundings. The animals no longer seemed intimidating, and the chores that had once felt strange began to feel familiar. During a brief break, Jake and Alina sat on a fence overlooking the fields. The wind moved the tall grass, and the ranch seemed to stretch endlessly into the horizon. For a moment, there was silence between them, and Alina realized she felt safe here in a way she had never felt before. "Do you like it here?" Jake asked quietly. Alina hesitated, then nodded. "It's very different from home, but I think I might like it. I have to get used to it." Jake smiled. "You're doing better than you think. I knew it the moment I read your letters. You have something special, Alina. You're brave even if you don't feel it yet." His words warmed her heart. She had feared that he might only care because of obligation, or that the idea of a mail-order bride was strange and uncomfortable for him. But now, she could see that his feelings were genuine. She felt a flicker of hope and trust begin to grow inside her. The next few days passed in a rhythm of work and small victories. Alina learned to mend fences, fix broken gates, and even herd cattle across the pasture. Every day, she discovered something new about ranch life and about herself. She grew stronger, more confident, and more at home in her new surroundings. Jake and Tom were patient teachers, never scolding her for mistakes, only guiding her gently and encouraging her progress. Alina also began to notice small details about Jake that made her heart stir. The way he laughed when something went wrong, the care he showed to the animals, and the quiet thoughtfulness in his actions, all of it made her feel drawn to him. She realized that what she had feared, that she might never belong or be accepted, was slowly fading. She was part of this life now, learning and growing each day, and the people she had only just met were beginning to feel like family. One evening after a long day of work, Alina joined Tom and Jake for supper. The meal was simple: bread, stew, and fresh vegetables, but it was comforting and filling. As they ate, Tom shared stories about the ranch, about how he had raised Jake alone after his wife passed, and about the challenges and joys of life in this harsh but beautiful land. Alina listened intently, realizing that every day brought lessons not just in work, but in patience, resilience, and care for others. After supper, Jake invited Alina to walk with him near the river at the edge of the ranch. The sun had set and the sky was painted in shades of purple and orange. The water reflected the colors of the sky, moving gently over the stones and pebbles. They walked in silence at first, each step bringing a sense of peace. "Do you ever get scared?" Alina asked quietly. "Sometimes," Jake admitted. "Life here isn't easy. There are hard days, and sometimes you wonder if you can handle it. But I've learned that it's worth it. You keep going, and slowly you find your place." Alina thought about her journey, about the doubts and fears that had followed her from the city to this remote ranch. She realized that she had already taken the first steps toward finding her place. She was learning, growing, and discovering strength she hadn't known she had. "I think I understand," she said softly. "It's about trying even when it's hard and trusting that you'll learn along the way." Jake smiled at her. "Exactly, and I know you'll be amazing at this. You already are." His words brought a blush to her cheeks. She felt a warmth in her chest that was new and welcome. It wasn't just the satisfaction of completing a chore or learning a new skill. It was the feeling of belonging, of being seen and valued for who she was. Over the following weeks, Alina's confidence continued to grow. She could ride horses more steadily, manage the animals without help, and even anticipate the needs of the ranch. Jake began to involve her in decisions, asking her opinion about which animals to move or how to repair a fence. Tom would nod approvingly when she spoke, and the neighbors who had once been skeptical of a mail-order bride began to show respect for her efforts. Alina found joy in the little things: the smell of fresh hay, the sound of cattle lowing in the distance, the laughter of children running through the fields. She discovered that hard work brought its own satisfaction, and that the bonds she was forming with Jake and Tom were stronger than any fear or doubt she had carried from the city. One afternoon, a minor crisis tested her resolve. A young calf had wandered too close to the river, and Alina had to act quickly. Without hesitation, she ran to guide the calf back to safety, her heart pounding in her chest. Jake followed closely, shouting encouragement, but Alina was the first to reach the animal and calm it. Her actions prevented an accident, and Tom's face shone with pride as he praised her courage and quick thinking. That evening, Alina sat on the porch, looking out over the fields as the sun dipped below the horizon. She thought about how far she had come in just a few short weeks. She had arrived nervous and unsure, fearing she would not belong. Now she felt a growing sense of confidence, connection, and hope. She had learned to work hard, to trust herself, and to believe in the love and care of the family she had joined. For the first time, Alina allowed herself to imagine a future here, not just surviving but thriving, and even finding love in a place she had once thought impossible. She realized that life on the ranch was challenging, yes, but it was full of possibility, beauty, and heart. And for the first time, she felt truly at home. The summer sun was hot and relentless, but the days on the Harris Ranch moved steadily, each one bringing new lessons and challenges. Alina had grown stronger and more confident, but she knew that ranch life was never easy. Every day seemed to test her patience, endurance, and courage. She rose early, helped feed the animals, checked the fences, and tended to the small vegetable garden near the house. The routine was hard, but it was satisfying. Each chore completed gave her a sense of purpose and made her feel more connected to this new life. Yet, despite her growing confidence, doubts sometimes crept back into her mind. She worried that she was still not doing enough, that she would never fully belong, and that perhaps Jake's feelings were not as real as she hoped. It was one thing to survive the physical demands of the ranch, but quite another to navigate the complicated emotions of a family she had just joined. One morning, Alina was working in the garden when a neighbor, Mrs. Porter, came by. Mrs. Porter was a woman of middle age, sharp-eyed and outspoken. She had watched Alina from the first day she arrived and had her own opinions about mail-order brides. "You're doing well for a city girl," Mrs. Porter said, her tone polite but with an edge. "But don't think life here will be easy. It takes more than courage to fit in." Alina forced a smile. "I'll do my best," she said softly, unsure how to respond to the veiled warning. Mrs. Porter nodded and left, but her words lingered in Alina's mind. She wondered if she was truly accepted, or if the townspeople would always see her as an outsider. She shared her concerns with Jake later, hoping he could reassure her. Jake listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. "Some people are slow to trust," he said. "But what matters is what we think. Tom and I care about you, and that's what counts. You can't control what others think, only what you do and how you feel." Alina nodded, appreciating his words, but she still felt a small pang of worry. She wanted so badly to belong, to be seen not as a newcomer, but as someone who was truly part of the family. That afternoon brought an unexpected test. A sudden storm rolled over the plains, dark clouds forming quickly in the sky. The wind picked up and rain began to fall in heavy sheets. Alina and Jake were out near the fields, checking on the cattle, when they heard the lowing of a frightened calf. It had wandered into a flooded area, struggling against the rising water. Without thinking, Alina ran toward it, her heart pounding. Jake followed close behind, shouting words of encouragement. Alina reached the calf and gently guided it back toward dry land. She felt the cold rain soaking through her clothes, the wind whipping her hair into her face, but she refused to stop. The calf was safe, and for a moment she allowed herself a small victory smile. Jake came up beside her, breathing heavily but smiling with pride. "You were amazing," he said, his eyes shining. "You saved it without hesitation." Alina felt a rush of relief and accomplishment. She realized that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. This experience strengthened her confidence, showing her that she could handle not only the physical challenges of ranch life, but the moments that required quick thinking and bravery. As the storm passed, the sky cleared, and a rainbow stretched across the horizon. Alina and Jake walked back to the house together, dripping wet but exhilarated. The shared experience had brought them closer, creating a bond that was growing stronger with each passing day. However, not all challenges came from nature. A few days later, an older cousin of Tom's visited the ranch. He was a man who took pride in the traditions of the family and the land, and he had his own opinions about mail-order brides. "I don't know if this is right," he said, eyeing Alina as she worked beside Jake. "A city girl like you might not understand what it takes to live on a ranch. You'll have to prove yourself or this won't last." Alina felt her heart sink. Despite all her efforts, she could feel judgment in his words. She wondered if she would ever be fully accepted or if she would always be under scrutiny. Jake noticed her unease and took her hand gently. "Don't listen to him," he whispered. "You've already proven yourself to me and my dad. That's what matters." Alina nodded, grateful for his support, but the incident left her thinking. She realized that acceptance wasn't always about doing everything perfectly. It was also about patience, understanding, and finding confidence in the people who truly cared for her. Later that week, Alina faced another challenge, this one more personal and emotional. She had been helping Tom repair a fence when she tripped and scraped her hand badly on a nail. The pain was sharp, and the blood made her nervous. Jake quickly ran to her side, helping her clean the wound and bandage it. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're going to be fine." Alina looked at him, feeling a surge of gratitude. She realized that she could rely on him not just for guidance in work, but for comfort and support in moments of fear or pain. Her trust in him deepened, and with it, her sense of belonging. Despite these moments of reassurance, Alina still struggled with homesickness. She missed the familiar streets of her city, the sound of her family's voices, and the comfort of her old routines. Some nights, as she lay in bed, she felt a deep ache for the life she had left behind. But gradually, she began to see that this new life, though different, offered its own kind of warmth and fulfillment. She was building connections, learning skills, and becoming part of something larger than herself. One afternoon, as Alina and Jake were gathering hay, she spoke quietly. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm really good enough for this place," she admitted. Jake paused, looking at her with gentle seriousness. "Alina, you are more than good enough. You've shown courage, patience, and kindness every single day. Don't let your fears tell you otherwise." His words settled in her mind. She realized that self-doubt was natural, but it didn't have to define her. She could face challenges, make mistakes, and still belong. She could grow into the life she had chosen, step by step, with the support of Jake and Tom. The next test came unexpectedly. A neighbor's horse had wandered onto the Harris ranch, causing the cattle to scatter. Alina and Jake had to act quickly to round up the animals and return the horse to its owner. Alina moved with determination, guiding the cattle with careful direction and using her voice to calm the animals. Jake worked beside her, shouting instructions and encouragement. The task was exhausting, and Alina's muscles ached, but by the time they finished, she felt a powerful sense of accomplishment. She had proven to herself, once again, that she could handle the unexpected, that she could remain calm under pressure, and that she was growing into her role on the ranch. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in brilliant shades of red and gold, Alina sat on the porch with Jake and Tom. The ranch was quiet, the animals settled for the night, and the air was filled with the peaceful sounds of nature. Alina realized that she had come a long way from the nervous young woman who had arrived weeks before. She had faced physical challenges, emotional doubts, and judgment from outsiders, and she had grown stronger because of it. Jake looked at her with a gentle smile. "You've changed a lot," he said. "I think this place is starting to feel like home for you." Alina nodded, feeling the truth of his words. She realized that home wasn't just a place. It was the people who accepted her, the work she could do well, and the life she was building step by step. She had found courage she didn't know she had, and she had discovered that trust and patience could help her overcome fear and uncertainty. That night, as she lay in bed, Alina reflected on the summer so far. She had faced storms, challenges, and self-doubt, but she had also experienced bravery, connection, and triumph. She realized that belonging was not about perfection. It was about effort, care, and the willingness to grow. And with Jake and Tom by her side, she knew she was not alone. Alina drifted off to sleep, feeling a sense of hope she had never known before. She had learned that challenges were part of life, but they were also opportunities to prove her strength, her courage, and her heart. She knew that more tests would come, but she also knew that she had already faced many and had come through stronger. Her bond with Jake and Tom had deepened, and she could feel that love and trust were growing between them. By the end of the summer, Elena realized that she had transformed. She was no longer the nervous, unsure girl who had arrived at the Harris Ranch weeks before. She had faced storms, judgment, and emotional trials, and each one had taught her something valuable about herself, her family, and the life she had chosen. She felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, confident that she could face them with courage, patience, and love. The fall sun cast a golden glow across the Harris Ranch, and Elena felt a deep sense of peace she had never known before. The hot, exhausting days of summer had passed, leaving behind the gentle warmth of autumn and a sense of accomplishment. Elena looked around at the familiar fields, the animals grazing peacefully, and the sturdy house where she had come to belong. It was hard to believe that only a few months ago she had arrived here as a nervous, uncertain young woman, unsure if she would ever fit in. Now, everything felt familiar, comforting, and real. The morning began like any other, with the sound of roosters crowing and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. Elena stretched and took a deep breath, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs. She was no longer intimidated by the tasks that awaited her. Gathering eggs, feeding the animals, checking fences, these chores had become part of her daily rhythm. She moved with confidence and ease, knowing that she had earned her place here, step by step, through hard work and determination. Jake approached her in the yard, carrying a basket of freshly harvested vegetables. "Good morning," he said, smiling. "Ready for the market today?" Elena nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "Yes, I think I've got everything ready." They spent the morning preparing for the trip to the nearby town, sorting the vegetables and packing them carefully into baskets. Elena enjoyed these moments, finding satisfaction not just in the work itself, but in the partnership she shared with Jake. They worked seamlessly together, anticipating each other's movements, speaking in quiet, friendly tones. Each day, their bond grew stronger, rooted in shared effort, mutual respect, and slowly blooming affection. As they traveled to the town, Elena took in the sights and sounds with a new sense of appreciation. The streets were busier than the ranch, but she no longer felt overwhelmed. She moved with purpose, carrying the baskets carefully and greeting neighbors politely. The townspeople who had once looked at her with suspicion now greeted her with nods of acknowledgement and friendly smiles. She realized that acceptance often came with time, and that her patience, courage, and kindness had earned her respect. At the market, Elena and Jake sold their produce, interacting with customers and sharing small talk. Elena felt a quiet pride as she handled transactions confidently, answering questions about the vegetables and offering advice on how to prepare them. Jake watched her with admiration and occasionally whispered words of encouragement, which made her heart flutter. She realized that she was no longer the uncertain young woman who had arrived at the ranch months ago. She had grown into someone capable, confident, and fully present in her new life. After returning to the ranch, they were greeted by Tom, who had been tending to the cattle. He looked at Elena with pride in his eyes. "You've done well, Elena," he said. "I can see that you belong here, not just with us, but in this life. You've proven yourself in every way that matters." Elena felt a surge of gratitude and relief. Tom's words meant more to her than any praise from strangers. They were a recognition of her effort, her courage, and her determination to become part of this family. She smiled and nodded, feeling a deep sense of connection and belonging. That evening, after the animals were settled and the chores completed, Elena and Jake sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the fields. The colors of the sky were rich and warm, reflecting in the quiet, flowing river nearby. The air was calm, filled with the gentle sounds of nature. Elena felt a profound sense of contentment, knowing that she had found a place where she was valued, loved, and truly at home. Jake turned to her, his expression gentle but serious. "Elena, I want you to know something," he said. "From the very first letters, I knew I wanted you to be part of our lives, and now, seeing everything you've done, I know I made the right choice. You're brave, kind, and strong, and I care for you more than I can say." Elena's heart swelled with emotion. She had feared for so long that she would never belong, that her efforts would never be enough, and that love might remain out of reach. Now, she realized that Jake's feelings were genuine, heartfelt, and unwavering. She reached out and took his hand, feeling the warmth and steadiness of his grip. "I care for you too, Jake," she said softly. "I've been afraid, yes, but I realize now that this is where I belong, with you, with your father, and with this life." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the fading light of the day. The quiet intimacy of the moment, the trust and affection they shared, made Alina feel more certain than ever that she had found her place. Over the following days, Alina became fully integrated into life on the ranch. She worked alongside Jake and Tom, but also began to take initiative on her own, noticing small details that needed attention, caring for the animals with gentle hands, and maintaining the house with pride. Her confidence grew with each passing day, and the bond between her and Jake deepened naturally, rooted in shared experiences, respect, and affection. Neighbors began to treat her differently too. Mrs. Porter, who had once been critical, now greeted Alina warmly, offering advice on planting and cooking. Even the cousin who had doubted her abilities had begun to acknowledge her contributions, nodding approvingly when she completed tasks efficiently. Alina realized that respect and acceptance often came not from force or argument, but from consistent effort, patience, and a willingness to learn and grow. One afternoon, Tom invited Alina to sit with him on the porch while he shared a story about the early days of the ranch. He spoke of challenges, losses, and moments of triumph. Alina listened intently, absorbing every word. She realized that she was not only part of this family, but part of a continuing story, a story of resilience, love, and dedication that spanned generations. As the days passed, Alina also found joy in the simple pleasures of ranch life. She loved the feeling of cool water on her hands while washing dishes, the warmth of sunlight on her back while riding horses, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing the animals healthy and cared for. These moments, small and ordinary, became treasures that grounded her, reminding her of the life she had chosen and the home she had found. One evening, as the first chill of autumn touched the air, Jake took Alina to the river near the edge of the ranch. The water was calm, reflecting the fiery colors of the sunset. He stopped, turned to her, and took both her hands in his. "Alina," he said, his voice steady, "I want you to know that you're not just part of this ranch, you're part of my heart. I've chosen you not because it's expected, but because I love you for who you are. Brave, kind, and strong, you are everything I hoped for." Tears welled in Alina's eyes. She had waited for this moment, feared it, and dreamed of it. Now she felt a joy deeper than words could express. "I love you too, Jake," she whispered. "I've found my place here with you, with your father, and in this life we share." They embraced, feeling the warmth and certainty of a love that had grown slowly, tested by challenges and strengthened by trust and patience. Alina realized that the journey she had taken, from a nervous, uncertain girl to a confident, courageous young woman, had led her to exactly where she was meant to be. The weeks that followed were filled with happiness and contentment. Alina and Jake worked together, laughed together, and planned for the future. They dreamed of expanding the ranch, caring for more animals, and building a life rooted in love, respect, and shared responsibility. Tom watched them with quiet pride, knowing that his son had found not just a helper for the ranch, but a true partner for life. Alina also found joy in teaching and helping others. She shared her knowledge with neighbors, guided younger children on the ranch, and offered kindness to everyone she met. Her presence had become a source of warmth and support in the community, and she felt a deep satisfaction in knowing that she was valued not only by her family, but by those around her. As autumn deepened, the days grew shorter, but Alina's heart was full. She had faced doubt, fear, and the challenges of a new life, but she had emerged stronger, more confident, and deeply loved. She realized that belonging was not about perfection. It was about effort, patience, courage, and the willingness to embrace life fully. She had found her home, her family, and her heart. One quiet evening, Alina sat on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. She thought about her journey, from the nervous young woman who had stepped off the train to the confident, happy woman who now smiled at the life she had built. She felt gratitude for the lessons she had learned, the bonds she had formed, and the love she had found. In that moment, Alina knew without a doubt that she was where she belonged. The ranch, the family, and the life she had chosen were no longer uncertain or intimidating. They were hers, fully and completely. And with Jake by her side, she felt ready for whatever the future might bring. The moon rose over the fields, casting a silver glow on the land she now called home. Elena felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that she had found not just a place to live, but a life filled with love, trust, and belonging. She smiled softly, leaning back in her chair, and whispered a quiet promise to herself. She would cherish this life, nurture the bonds she had formed, and continue to grow as a person, knowing that she had truly found her home.